Tim Blackman is really proactive. He's been on the case all along. Oh yes, yeah, Tim's doing all the yeah, he was welcome. We wouldn't recommend you. Oh, I see. Traffic control. Good afternoon, members. If I could have your attention, please. We're now going to open the meeting. Good afternoon to the press and also members of the public present. This is the one opportunity each year I get to have a bit of power. So I always savour this moment, albeit the years seem to be going around faster, but maybe I'm getting older now, I don't know. The first item on your agenda is for the election of chairman, please, members. So do I have any nominations, please?
Councillor Ruth Edwards. She's done a magnificent job over the past few years, and I would like to propose her for the following term. Thank you.
Before I ask for a vote, are there any other nominations? No. Could I just ask then for everybody to show their hands in respect of the nomination? Thank you. Therefore, Councillor Edwards is elected as chairman. Would you like to come up, please, Ruth?
Thank you all very much indeed, and I can't thank you enough for all your support of this last several years now that I've been chair. We're a very good team together. We do get quite a variation in our applications and the people we meet, but on the whole, I think we do Monmouthshire justice in how we take care of the planning process in Monmouthshire. Before we do go to the election of the vice chair, I must really thank our officers, not only the ones down in the department that we don't see every day, but our planning officers up here and Rob, who do a grand job in supporting us, and we hope we can support them. But also, I don't know if it's the right moment, but as I'm speaking, I'd like you all to welcome Mr. Mark Hand, our new head of planning, who's with us now today, and I'm hoping he will sort of feel as though he fits into the team very well, and welcome very much indeed, Mr. Hand. Anyway, I'll hand over back to Rob now to do the next. Oh, right. Well, I'd like to take a nomination, please, for the vice chair. Councillor Edwards, you mentioned Peter Clark. Could I have a seconder? Councillor Brian Strong. Could I have a show of hands for that? Are there any more nominations? I just thought I'm cutting to the chase here a bit. Right, no more nominations at all? Right, thank you. If Councillor Clark would like to join me up here, please. Welcome. Looks like the old team is steering in the same direction again. Also welcome everybody else in the room, the members of the public and press, and everybody else that's here today, although we have got a few apologies, I believe, to be received.
Yes, Chair, I've had apologies from Councillor Taylor.
Thank you very much indeed. No. And Councillor Blakeborough. Right. Get my glasses on now to see what I can read. Right, we've done some of the preliminary things now. Declaration of interest, please. Councillor Edwards.
Yes, Chair, I can declare personal and prejudicial interest in 2014-00351.
Right, Richard. Councillor Roger Harris.
Thank you, Chair. Personal and prejudicial interest in DC 2015-00191.
Thank you. Before we also continue, could I also make sure that everybody in the room has turned off their mobile phones? Thank you. Councillor Webb.
Bearing in mind this is a new term, Councillor Edwards, Chairman, I'm just wondering if you would consider, with your Vice Chairman, that we have a half an hour before the Planning Committee meeting in order to discuss problems that we might locally have that we've heard about that are bothering us. It would be good to share our different problems with other members on the Planning Committee. And I'm just wondering if you'd consider that with the officers, whether that's appropriate. Thank you.
I'd like to say.
Yeah, I have had thoughts on that sort of thing for quite a while now, but actually I couldn't put any sort of thing forward until I was re-elected to chair. So I think now that perhaps now with the new term that we can hopefully do that, as long as members can make sure that they're here, say half an hour and all so before we start and before any public or press are allowed into the room, so that we can discuss it all in private. Thank you. Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If it's put on the agenda, the first item, @1 pre-meeting, like other committees, it works quite well.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. So could we possibly do that, Richard? Right, thank you. So that you're all in agreement with that going forward? Right, thank you very much indeed. We now go on to the accuracy of the minutes of the Planning Committee on the 5th of May. Page 1. Page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, and page 6. Thank you. Do you have a seconder, Councillor Higginson? Councillor Edwards has seconded that. Could I have a show of hands, please? I will sign those at the end of the meeting. We now go on to the agenda item 6. With a presentation from the Chief Officer.
Yeah, this is the, I think this is the tree preservation order. Oh, it's the tree preservation order first, is it?
Welcome, Jim. Are you all right? Are you all right to do it there, Jim?
Yes,
Is everybody happy
that's
with
fine,
that?
Chairman. Thanks. Yeah,
Thank
Chief
you.
Officer. I like the sound of that. That's, does that come with a pension as well? With the, yeah, thank you, Chairman. Members of the committee, I presume that you've all read the confirmation report, so I won't waste time going through it. Basically, just to recap, we received a 6-week notice of intent under Section 211 of the Town and Country Planning Act, which is felling a statement of intent to fell a tree in a conservation area from the resident of Primrose Cottage, Llandogo. Our response to that, because we felt that the tree had landscape value because of its size, that we would protect the tree with a preservation order. I have twice in writing made the offer to the objector, Mrs. Gudgeon, who resides at that property, that we would consider the opinion of an arboricultural expert that if we shouldn't confirm the tree preservation order, we also suggested that we would be happy to accept an application to prune the tree, lowering it slightly in height and perhaps thinning out some of the branches to lessen the weight in the tree, but still keeping it as for its intrinsic landscape value. We've had no response from Mrs. Gudgeon up until last week, when I emailed Mrs. Gudgeon to say that the Tree Preservation Order confirmation report would be presented at committee today, and she was quite welcome to attend. I understand she's actually at sea somewhere with her husband, who's a serving officer in either the Royal or the Merchant Navy. I'm not quite sure which. But in response to that, she asked a local tree work contractor to have a look at the tree and put in some comments which may be considered at this meeting. From a professional point of view, I don't feel the comments were particularly professionally made. I spoke to the chap that gave the comments via this email that I received only last week, and he did allude to me that he felt somewhat out of his depth, but he did feel that he should be honour bound to say something because Mrs. Gudgeon had asked him to. And incidentally, he would have been the contractor chosen to cut the tree down if we didn't put the TPO on it. Just one more thing, two more things to consider. It has since come to my knowledge from my colleagues in biodiversity and ecology that the tree has importance for one of the largest lesser horseshoe bat roosts in the UK, which is in the roof of the adjacent Priory building, and that is a high likelihood that those bats would be using that tree as a marker during their foraging and commuting back and forth to catch their prey. So obviously there would be other issues involved other than the Town and Country Planning Act when considering felling this tree. The last thing that I just want to bring to a committee before I take questions, Chairman, if that's okay, that the objector, Mrs. Gudgeon, felt that the tree was a threat to her property. I appreciate that because a tree fell from a neighbouring property recently, which had the effect of probably making her quite nervous about the tree at the back of her house. But that is a completely unrelated matter, nothing to do with the sycamore at all. The tree that did fall, an oak, did have some compromising decay fungus at its root plate, which caused it to fall over in a high wind. She was concerned that the tree may fall on her house, but one of the comments given in the tree contractor's report that he sent to me the other day was that the tree is 25 metres in height and 25 metres away from the property. Ergo, it could not fall on that house if it did, and that would be a very unlikely occurrence in my professional opinion anyway. So my opinion is that the tree, because of its great age, it's well over 150 years old, which is quite old for a sycamore. It's very large, it's a nice part of the landscape, and my recommendation, Madam Chair, is that we confirm the tree preservation order without modification. That's not to say that I won't leave the door open to Mrs. Gudgeon if she does provide me with a professional report as to why that TPO should be declared null and void. I am willing to accept that and discuss that with her post-confirmation if committee decide to confirm the order.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Keach. I'm just wondering whose ward it is. Is it Councillor Webb's?
Councillor Blakeborough.
Councillor Blakeborough. Are you the adjoining ward then? Do you wish to speak first? No, right. Councillor Harris?
Thank you, Chair. Can you confirm, Jim, that the tree is a bat marker, and if it was pruned, it wouldn't interfere particularly with the bats?
I would take counsel from my more learned colleagues in biodiversity and ecology, but I'm assuming that the tree is important, a mark of a bat, which wasn't part of my original deliberations, purely because of its size and the fact that there's been quite a bit of tree felling around the Priory recently because of ongoing development there. So yeah, the tree is probably quite important for bats. But my gut feeling is that to thin it out, to make it less sort of threatening from her point of view, then wouldn't compromise the foraging route of the bats. But as I say, I would take more professional opinion from my colleagues.
Thank you, Councillor Harris.
I'm happy to move that tree preservation order goes on the tree, Chair.
Councillor Evans? Right. Anybody else wish to comment on this? Councillor Wintle?
There's reference to a second tree a sycamore. Is it sycamore?
No, there was an oak that was on a very, very steep bank overhanging the lane which goes up the back of the priory. We didn't think that that was appropriate for long-term retention with a TPO, so under the statement of intent, we allowed that one to be felled.
Councillor Murphy?
Yeah, just one small point. You mentioned, Jim, that the tree was extremely ancient, so, well, not in tree terms, but certainly
It's
in
quite
our
an old
terms,
tree, yes.
Yeah. We're absolutely certain that there's no sort of hidden decay there. There's no...
That was, sorry, Councillor Murphy, that was explained fully to Mrs Gudgeon, that all the county council is obliged to do is, if we see evidence that a tree should have a tree preservation order placed on it, we will do so unless they can provide evidence to the contrary, that there is something wrong with it. So I haven't made a minute examination of it because that's not the council's place to do.
But that's one of the things that you would clearly consider if it came forward.
Indeed I would, yes. Yeah. Yes, I would, yeah.
And we're concerned about the tree falling on the house, and clearly we know the measurements now and it won't. Would there be, I'm not sure what the topography is, would it be likely to fall the other way over the...
No, because of the lie of the land, it would fall that way. But my professional opinion is, because it's been growing in that particular state for well over 150 years, that a massive amount of anchoring roots are fanning out up that bank to hold it up. Without boring you unnecessarily with arboricultural detail, trees are what are known as self-optimizing structures, in as much that whatever position they find themselves in, they will adapt to that position in order to survive. And I've no doubt that tree has done the same.
In that case, Chair, happy to support it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Harris, I believe you proposed approval, and you're seconding it, Councillor Murphy. Sorry, Councillor Evans. Could I have a show of hands for approval? Thank you very much indeed. You can also leave the meeting if you want to.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, thanks very much.
Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Right, thank you. Now we got to the more formal things, and first of all, before we do the applications, I would like our officers to introduce themselves, please, and the rest of the ones up here, which we didn't do because very often if we get an extra officer in, we like them to do what they have to do so they can leave and not stay for the whole of the meeting. Thank you. Right, Richard.
Yes, I'm Richard Williams, Democratic Services Officer.
I'm Paula Clark, Planning Control Manager.
Philip Thomas, Development Control Manager.
Hi there, I'm Mark Hand, Head of Planning.
I'm Craig O'Connor, Planning Officer.
And you've heard from me, Robert Tranter, Head of Legal Services and the Temporary Monitoring Officer.
And I believe Councillor Clark and myself, Chair and Vice Chair, you know, are now aware of. Right, we now go to, first of all, we'll take application on page 11 first, please. And item 7 also on the agenda is not going to be discussed today because I believe it's already gone through full council, so that shouldn't really have been on the agenda. So the meeting shouldn't take so long this afternoon, thank you. Right, Phil?
Oh, sorry, let's skip to the correct slides. This is a site we looked at yesterday on Portal Road. It's a site it's allocated in the development plan for visitor accommodation. That's a site, we had a look at that just off Portal Road. There's a gate there which leads into the site, which has got a lot of self-seeded ash trees in it with more mature growth on the periphery. That's again looking at Portal Road. And there's a site from the bridge over the A40, and that's a site over the other side of the road there. And then that's looking back from one of the slip roads that goes off towards, I think you go to Trellick that way off the A40 when you're going westbound, and that's the site in the distance over the other side there. You can see there's a big backdrop to the site there with heavy tree screen. And that's we'll start getting to the plans. So the site is located between the A40 and the Portal Road. The topography of the site slopes from south to north down towards the River Monnow, which runs further to the north of the site. The The petrol station and light industrial units are situated on the northern boundary of the site, with residential dwellings located to the west on the other side of Portal Road. The site is currently overgrown scrubland. There are also planted trees within the site and mature trees along the boundaries. The proposed hotel will be situated to the south of the petrol station, would be on a northwest-southeast axis. The hotel would accommodate 60 bedrooms and it would have a footprint measuring 52 metres by 19 metres. It would also accommodate a cafe restaurant on the ground floor, which would be ancillary to the hotel, although the general public could also use this facility. The building would have 3 different sections that vary in height. The central section would be 3 stories high. Let's just move to the actual elevations. You can see those. That's the rear elevation. That faces away from the A40 towards Portal Road, and the side elevation. And that's the elevation that would face towards the slip road as you come through the tunnels. It turns into Monmouth itself and the A40. Well, that would be the elevation, the longer elevation that you generally be presented with as you're heading towards the tunnels on the A40. And that's the elevation that faces towards I think that's the one towards the A40 as well, isn't it? Okay, so the central section would be the highest section, as you can see, and that would measure 15 metres to the ridge. The northern section would measure 14 metres, and the southern section would measure 13 metres. That's the left-hand section there. The proposed materials for the building would include painted render and stone for the external walls, slate for the roof, and the windows would be aluminium. The proposed vehicular access would be off Portal Road, you see here. So coming in off Portal Road, there will be an access leading into the site which provides a potential development opportunity elsewhere. The land is owned by the council, and that's where potentially the coach parking would be accommodated, which estates are aware of there is a need for in the town. So off the spur road coming in, which is built to adoptable standards, the site would come in with 62 parking spaces, 3 disabled spaces to serve the staff and the visitor accommodation, and a loading bay here for servicing. There'd also be a balancing pond in this corner for surface water, which would have a slow release chamber below it to actually allow surface water to spread from the site in a sustainable manner. Okay, so there'll be 23 net additional jobs, full-time equivalent jobs, to be supported by the hotel and incorporated restaurant once operational, although other spin-off employment would also result in terms of construction and other servicing businesses. It's been allocated within policy SAT1 with the LDP for having potential for visitor accommodation in the form of a new build hotel. The site lies within Monmouth's development boundary where new build development is considered to be acceptable, subject to detailed planning considerations. The principle of siting a new build hotel at this site is acceptable as it is in accordance with strategic policies S8, S11 and SAT1 of the LDP, which aim to deliver sustainable economic growth and enhance tourism in the county. As regards flood impact, the northern section of the site, including some of the car parking area, would remain within the flood zone C1, but it's considered this would be acceptable provided an appropriate flood evacuation plan is put in place so that the consequences of a flood event could be managed. A condition would be added to any consent to ensure that a flood evacuation plan is implemented at the site to manage this potential flood risk. The hotel building would not be sited within the flood zone itself, and therefore the proposals avoid the siting of an inappropriate development in an area at risk of flooding in accordance with policies S12 and SD3 of the LDP. The proposed building would be set back from the A40 and Portal Road. It is not considered that it would be visually dominant or overbearing in relation to viewpoints from these road networks. The height of the building is largely derived from the building having to provide 60 habitable rooms to be a viable development project. The proposed building would have 3 floors, and the building has been divided into 3 separate elements, utilising different ridge heights to break up the scale and mass of the building. While the site lies on an entrance route to the Wye Valley AONB, it is not considered that the development would harm the characteristics of the rural landscape in accordance with policies LC4 and LC5 of the LDP. The general layout of the proposal, including the proposed new junction and commercial access road to together with the off-site highway improvements, have been designed according to current highway design standards. In addition, the proposed parking provision for the hotel meets the requirements of the adopted parking standards 2012. There's a minimum distance of 80 metres between the proposed hotel building and any nearby dwellings, which are on the other side of Portal Road, plus intervening trees and vegetation, which mean the proposal would not have an adverse impact on residential amenity. The landscaping plan proposes planting on the eastern, southern and western boundaries of the site with native species trees and hedgerows. The existing ceremonial trees that are planted along the western boundary with Portal Road would be retained. This landscaping would soften the view of the proposed development and ensure that existing ecological connectivity is not unacceptably affected by the proposals. And given the design and form of the proposed building and the proposed sympathetic landscaping, the development would have an acceptable visual impact on the wider landscape. And the proposed development would protect and enhance the green infrastructure at the site and would be in accordance with policy S13 and GI1 of the LDP. The Council's Biodiversity Officer has conducted the necessary habitats regulation assessment for this proposal, and in terms of the impact on the River Wye, which is a European designation, they are satisfied, our officers are satisfied that there would be no significant effect caused by changes in water chemistry or flow rates during the operation, due to the design of the drainage systems at the site, including a sustainable urban drainage system and balancing pond. Any significant effect that could arise from the construction phase will be avoided with the adoption of appropriate measures to safeguard the site, secured via a planning condition for construction environmental management plan. In addition, NRW are satisfied that technical mitigation conditions, including a lighting plan, can ensure that the local dormouse population is not harmed by this proposal, and there will be off-site mitigation to remedy this issue. As noted by NRW, no restocking has been undertaken by the council at this site since the felling of trees, but natural regeneration of the woodland has occurred, which complies with the woodland grant and subsequent restocking notice. Trees at the site have regenerated, and to cut them down and restock would have been inappropriate. In order to mitigate for the felling of trees at the site, replacement woodland was developed on an alternative site. That site is located half a mile to the east of Portal Road, to the north of the Monmouth allotments, between the dual carriageway and the River Wye. That new woodland area was restocked with trees in line with the original restocking notice. NRW states that the application site should be considered as community woodland. However, there's no public access to the site, and the site has been allocated for a new build hotel within the adopted development plan. The council has provided replacement woodland at the previously mentioned site as mitigation for the loss of the original trees. A financial contribution of £46,569 has been requested by the council's Countryside and Green Infrastructure team for the maintenance of green infrastructure features and compensation for the loss of some of the existing features on the site. A figure for the green infrastructure bond is to be formally agreed with the developer for inclusion within a Section 106 agreement. So overall, the recommendation is for approval, subject to conditions, and a Section 106 agreement for a green infrastructure bond. There would be a need to review the conditions in the report in the light of comments in late correspondence from NRW relating to mitigation for dormice, but we do recommend approval. Thank you. Sorry, if I can just flip very quickly through the remaining slides. Those are the floor plans. That's the landscaping scheme. There's a lot of peripheral planting. That's an artist's impression showing the hotel in the background there with some foreground planting. That's again from the slip road really as you come into Monmouth. That's within the site, closer to it, but I'm not sure you'll actually get that view really particularly unless you're in the car park. Again, that's within the car park, within the site itself, with your back towards Portal Road. Similar view. And that's the last slide. So I'll leave it on that one, but we recommend approval.
Thank you very much, Phil. We have a member in Monmouth Town Council, I believe, that wishes to speak. Not Town Council. Right, could you please take a stand and address the committee, stating your name, and you have 4 minutes to make your case. Thank you. Could you state who you're representing then, please?
My name is David Cummings. I'm Chairman of Monmouth and District Chamber of Trade and Commerce. Good afternoon. I'd like to thank the committee for giving me the chance to, on behalf of Monmouth Chamber of Commerce, to give a brief summary of the reasons for our wholehearted support for this planning application. I would also like to thank council officers for their hard work in ensuring this application was considered at this meeting. The desperate need for a new hotel for Monmouth was identified by MCC way back in the time of the Economic Development Plan entitled Fresh Directions 2003 to 2007. For the last 9 years, on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce, I have lobbied county councillors and senior officers to bring this essential facility for Monmouth to fruition. In a late submission letter to you by Nicola Edwards, Food and Tourism Manager at MCC, she sets out clearly the need for a new hotel for Monmouth. I would just like to take from the letter and emphasise that a 60-bedroom hotel would create £1.3 million per annum for the local economy. Also, that contemporary 3-star plus hotels have now been identified as the best meeting the current needs of the visitor and business tourism market. Not identified in her letter, but equally relevant, is the fact that currently, when all the rooms in town are taken, a situation that happens all too regularly, we are losing overnight stay visitors to Monmouth to the likes of Ross on Wye. Ross has 3 times as many serviced accommodation beds as Monmouth. Supporting the economy of Herefordshire seems to be against the principles of support for businesses, as outlined in the MCC document, Monmouthshire Business Growth and Enterprise Strategy 2014 to 2020. After long and protracted communications with Natural Resources Wales of late on various projects, it is evident that there are no other sites close to town where a hotel could be built that do not offend some flooding clause from Technical Advice Note 15. Proximity to town is also key to providing the maximum benefit for the local economy, as residents of the hotel can easily walk from Portal Road into Monnow Street to shop or to have a meal if the hotel cafe does not offer enough choice. It is important to recognise the increase in revenue that will be created from the hotel for county council-owned buildings that cater for weddings, such as Bridges and the Shire Hall. Currently, we are losing wedding bookings to the likes of Usk because we do not have sufficient accommodation in town to accommodate all the guests, from even a modest wedding. In the Chamber's view, expert opinion and reports from visitors and Tourist Information Centre staff alike, there is 100% support on the need for this hotel, and I hope the committee will look favourably upon this application and so provide Monmouth with this most essential facility for supporting the economy of the town. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. We do have the local member who is not a member on the planning committee here. If there are any issues that you wish to raise with her, she's quite willing, if possible, to answer. That's Councillor Sue White. Thank you. Right, members, most of you were there yesterday at the site visit. Councillor Higginson.
Just one, Madam Chairman, if I may. The provision of 3 spaces for disabled parking. Is that considered to be enough?
I presume so. Highways will have looked at this in some detail. We can double check that to see whether that proportion should be high, but I think it is. It's not 5%. It's less than that, isn't it?
We do have Craig O'Connor, the planning officer, sat in front. If you wish to answer any queries at all, Craig, you're willing to do so.
Yeah, Highways have been involved with this application through pre-application stage, and it's been amended several times to ensure that it does meet Monmouthshire's parking standards. So it does meet in terms of visitor accommodation and also staffing levels as well. It was negotiated quite significantly to get it to this stage, and it does meet their standards, and they haven't objected, and the action in support of it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Craig. Councillor Hayward, then Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Chair. It's absolutely right that the town needs a hotel, and it's exactly the right place to put the hotel. The piece of land that was there beforehand, even before the trees were cut, didn't really contribute to the Wye Valley, because you had the bridge crossing the tunnels at that point, which sort of hid it from the Wye Valley. It was a sort of quiet backwater brownfield site. I know it wasn't a brownfield site, part of Monmouth. So it'll only enhance the area, and the hotel will certainly benefit the town, and it's the right thing and the right place to put it. The only disappointment I've got is the 106 monies that have been asked for, the 46,500 for the Greenfield site. I think would have been far better spent in developing the coach parking, which the town needs as well. And again, this site in the town isn't a greenfield site. People don't go there to have a look at the town or have a look at the views or to look at the A40 going past or listen to the noise of the traffic. It is very much a working site, and it's the right place for a hotel, and it would be the right place to park coaches, which is also something they needed. So I fully support the application. My only exception would be I would like the 106 monies, instead of being spent on green landscaping in an area which doesn't require green landscaping, I would rather that money was spent on coach parking bays for the benefit of the town. But otherwise, I fully support the application.
Thank you, Councillor Hayward. Councillor Powell?
Thank you, Chairman. I too support the application. Something of this sort has been needed for a long time, because at the moment, people that are on business and commercial travel, well, we don't call them commercial travellers now, people that are travelling on business, if without somewhere to stay, they're just going to go further down to the next towns or even as far as Newport, and we're losing them. And also there are many people who would stay there who would enjoy the beauties of a town like Monmouth and would bring it more to the fore, and I think it's an excellent addition, and I support it fully.
Thank you, Councillor Powell. Councillor Dovey, then Councillor Wintle.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I too support this proposal. I echo Councillor Hayward's comments with regard to coach parking. One of the issues we do have in the Wye Valley at the moment is the loss of the holiday section that comes from coaches visiting the area. And I think in terms of tourism, this is shooting ourselves in the foot if we don't make some sort of proposal or recommendation as far as coach parking is concerned. The other thing I am a little concerned about is we say that this is a 60 bed hotel, and yet there are only 62 car parking spaces for visitors and employees. How many employees are we expecting there to be in the hotel? And if the hotel is pretty fully accommodated, where are these employees going to go? The issue I fear might occur is that employees, if they can't park in the hotel, will probably migrate to the garage around the corner where they have a large parking area for their shop, and that could end up with, shall we say, some aggravation between both businesses. I think the car parking spaces are on the lean side.
Thank you, Councillor Dovey. Councillor Wintle?
Sorry, can I just
yes.
address that? I did try and address that in late correspondence. I don't know whether Councillor Dovey had a chance to read that. What I've said, I'll read it out. There are 62 parking spaces proposed to serve the development. This allows several spaces for staff parking, and remember that 23 is full-time equivalent jobs. They're not all going to be there at the same time. There's going to be cleaners there at sort of mid-morning, and then they'll disappear, won't they? They're not going to be there all day. And then there'll be part-time jobs. So again, there won't be 23 staff. What I'm trying to say, there won't be 23 staff in the premises all day doing that work. So there'll be considerably less than that. So there'll be several spaces for staff parking. Not all hotel bedrooms will be occupied at one time. Occupancy rates are typically around 80%, and some rooms are occupied by parties by arriving in one car, such as business users or families. So you could have multiple rooms occupied, served by just one car. And also staff would be encouraged to walk to the site, use public transport, will be dropped off. So again, not everyone's going to have to drive to the site there to actually work there. So I think that really is a background to why Highways considered that level of parking and what the adopted parking standards don't require big car parks which are going to be half empty. and then it's a big engineered waste of space.
Thank you for that, Phil.
Could I just respond to that?
Yes, you can do, Councillor Dove, then I'll take Councillor Harris.
One, I haven't seen the late correspondence. It could very well be me. I've got this, but I didn't see that explanation. So I'm sorry. The point is...
Are any other members here who haven't seen the late correspondence? Do I need to stop it for a couple of minutes for you to read it? Everybody okay with that?
No, I accept that it's likely to be me. Yeah. The point is well that we're talking about staff coming to the hotel. That would be right for some of the time, but you've got to bear in mind the thought of using buses is probably not appropriate because a lot of these staff come in what are unsocial hours in the hotel trade, and they leave at unsocial hours afterwards. So there is that element. I still think it's a bit tight. That is really what I'm saying.
Thank you, Councillor Dovey. Councillor Wintle, then Councillor Harris, then Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actual fact, David's got a very valid point because I should imagine staff to work there would be drawn from all around the area, not just in the town. In fact, I suspect they have difficulty getting people from the local area. Remember when Monroe Bridge was being constructed, that area was used as a car park. And I think there's about 2 or 3 cars ever used it because people just would not go out there. So everybody will know if it's a good hard standing, they'll always drive to work. They won't, especially if it's inclement weather, which odd times we do get. But apart from that, I do agree that we need the hotel and I support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wintle. Councillor Harris now, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I fully support it as well. And I should imagine that the hotel manager, assuming that the staff are busy taking up all the prime spots on the car park, will actually do something about that to make sure that the people that actually pay will actually be using the car park. But the important thing is in the supplementary late correspondence, following on from what Phil was saying, the coach parking envisaged for the site is anticipated to be provided on the balance of the land owned by the council, but not part of the current planning application. I wonder if we can just emphasise in the conditions that we really need to see this coach parking plot actually brought forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure we can do that because it's nothing to do with this application. The land is owned by MCC and I'm the portfolio holder, so I'll drive that forward. Can I just, because I recognise the need for the car parking spaces, can I just clear up something with Craig on the parking? The car parking, no doubt, was specified by the architects when they planned it. It wasn't a condition of the number that we put on it, was it?
No, they actually put in for a lot less.
Yeah, okay. My point was going to be, I dread to think how many of these hotels are all around the country. They've got an incredible amount of experience of exactly what they need where, and I'm quite certain that the car parking has been very well thought out. So I don't think it's going to be the problem that members think it is.
Thank you. Thank you, Phil. I think Councillor Webb, then Councillor Hayward again. Did you wish to speak? Councillor Webb first, please. Thank you.
The green infrastructure forms a lot of this report, quite a high proportion of the report. Thank you, Craig. Is it possible, please, for the local member to be consulted on the plans for the planting, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Webb. Councillor Hayward now, and I'll ask then for a comment from the local member. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It was just to take up Councillor Murphy's point. I quite realise that the coach parking isn't part of the application, but the 106 monies, of course, is. And the point I made when I introduced it, first of all, was that the 106 monies should have been allocated to coach parking, not that coach parking should be part of the planning application.
Thank you, Councillor Hayward. Yes, yeah. Right, Mr. Hand wishes to comment. Thank you.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I was just conferring with Phil. I think my advice is that the regulations under which we can secure Section 106 contributions are such that we couldn't use the money for the coach parking because it's related to this application in part, but it's sort of a wider project that the Monmouth and Monmouthshire Council want. So it wouldn't comply with the SIL regulations, is my advice. So we would need to use the money for the GI infrastructure. Phil was talking about the other mechanisms for providing the coach parking from, the council's own projects, which perhaps Councillor Murphy is best placed to comment on. But it does sound as though that's all secured via different means.
Thank you, Mr. Hand. Councillor White, did you wish to comment at all on that?
Sorry, I thought Councillor Murphy was going to answer that. I did have an input right at the beginning about, I was asked about the plan as a whole, and I, as I do, picked up on the planning, on the parking. I was assured that it would be managed. If they had a big influx, i.e. wedding, they would manage their staff toing and froing, and that is what I accepted. They did enlarge the car park to a certain extent, and I was quite happy with that because I thought if you're running a business, you know more than anyone what you're doing. Can I just say that it isn't only the council buildings that perform marriages. We have wonderful churches in Monmouth, and the guests do have to find somewhere to stay overnight or perhaps for a couple of days. And so it's not just the council buildings that are used or any other building. Very much so, thank goodness, the churches in Monmouth are being used.
Thank you, Councillor White. One comment, and I believe my Vice Chair will back me up on this. We are very concerned about the colour of the render that they want to put on the front of the building, because we have had this new sort of I don't know how you describe this new render, through colour, and after a while it begins to look quite dingy. Craig obviously is nodding and bearing me up on this, so I don't know whether we need to condition this or not, but as it's going to be very much in the forefront of Monmouth town itself and coming into Monmouth, I don't think I'd like to see a dingy looking building. And also another concern of my own is the lighting. I would not like to see these very elevated bright orange lights that dominate the surrounding area that you do see sometimes in the area now. That's one thing I would not like to see in a rural landscape. Anyway, I'll pass over to Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. Craig, on page 13, on the top paragraph, the bottom line, it says we recommend the detailed flood plan as a condition if permission is granted. It's not in the conditions.
Oh, sorry. Apologies for that, Councillor Clark.
Okay.
It is supposed to be there.
All right, thank you. Can I ask just one other tolerance? If you look at the drawing, painting in front of us, on the gable end where the blue sign is, we have fascia boards. We've made a plea on all our housing and on our structures for that to be slightly more dominant. When you see that wall in itself end on, it'll be an awful lot of white render and not a lot of fascia at the top. And I just think if we could strengthen it slightly, it would help the general look of the building. There's a poor example of it in Chepstow, on the pub we built there, where we asked for the same thing and we failed to get it. So having it come up again, I'm hoping we might get a better result this time.
We can certainly ask for details of the roof detail like we did in Gutra on the house on the site there. We could do something similar there. And also in response to the materials, I have conditioned the materials to be checked over because I do recognise...
What about the lighting?
The lighting, we've asked for the lighting plan as part of the biodiversity, so that'll be as part of that, but I'll take on consideration.
It's highly unlikely they'll have big lamp standards, because if there are bats flying across the site, they'll want to reduce the light impact. So they'll be lower, I'm sure, and more discreet.
Right, thank you, Phil, on that. Thank you, Craig. Councillor Wintle?
Thank you, Chair. You find actually that the street lights out on the main road are very high as well. So I shouldn't think they need any more lighting.
They need a bit.
Yes, thank you. Right, Councillor Higginson?
Prepared to move, we accept this.
Right, thank you, Councillor.
Second is Councillor Webb.
Councillor Webb is seconded. Could I have a show of hands for approval, please? Right, thank you all very much. I think we've given that application a very good hearing. Thank you.
Page 3 now.
We now go to page 3.
So very briefly on this one, this application was well debated at the last meeting. Oh, sorry, Doug.
Oh, sorry, Doug.
Yeah, said this was well debated at the last meeting of committee. Members were minded to approve the application, which was very much on balance in terms of its recommendation for refusal by officers on the basis of the financial test. But members felt that, you know, given the significant infrastructure that had been put in place by the business and the strong case they put forward to back up their proposals, evidence their financial viability, then members were minded to approve the application at the last meeting, and the conditions in view of the recommendation are set out on pages 4 to 5. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Phil. This is in my ward and I would move approval. But Councillor Murphy, if you wishes to comment first, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I wanted to comment on the further information provided that came in late correspondence. Only goes to reinforce my view that our consultant on the financial aspect is wrong here. He makes comment that the financial test is still not met, and I can see the point he's making, that it hangs on a precarious balance of the weight of the chickens. That only goes to improve this sweet spot that they're talking about. It makes it even more important, as far as I'm concerned, that the manager lives on site. And I make the point again I made last time, that that bungalow once built will be of no value whatsoever, because it wouldn't be able to be sold on the open market. So I'm quite happy to continue to recommend approval.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Anybody else wish to comment? No. I think, and obviously there will be an agricultural tie on that. Yeah. I move, and your second. So could I have a show of hands for approval, please? Thank you all very much. Okay, Councillor Edwards, Councillor Harris has left the chamber. We now go to page 31. Okay. Thank you, Paula.
Thanks, Chair. This application seeks the provision of an annex building in the garden of Cobweb Cottage, Chepstow. The application is brought to Planning Committee as the owner is an elected member. The property is set in a very generous plot, accessed via a steep driveway from Highview. The immediate area is characterised by large detached properties, however there's no prevailing style of property. The application proposes to remove some existing sheds to provide an annex with garaging for 2 cars and a store on the ground floor, and bedroom, bathroom and sitting room at first floor. It's considered that the 2-storey building is acceptable in terms of its form, scale, setting and massing. The proposed materials include smooth render for the walls and red-brown tiles for the roof. The render is typical of the area and acceptable. However, the choice of tiling does not respect the existing house, and a condition is recommended to ensure details of materials are submitted for approval, especially as the site is within the conservation area. We've had some late correspondence from the neighbour, which I'll read out to you. Our objection still remains until the issues below are addressed, which we do not feel are unreasonable. Please note that in general we do not have a problem with development on this site, but we do not feel that our concerns over privacy into bedrooms have been adequately addressed. Also, the plans are not sufficiently detailed. Example, proposed kitchen facilities are missing, nor have concerns of the longer-term use of the property been adequately addressed, i.e. concerns that a change of use later could result in this being a permanent dwelling, without issues of privacy into bedrooms adequately addressed. We do not feel that it is an unreasonable request to ask that the details discussed below are included within the application. The proposal has been negotiated since it came in. The original scheme did have dormer windows on the front elevation. They've now been removed and replaced with roof lights. If we could, if we could get the plans up, Phil. The initial proposal did have dormer windows at the first floor. Now they have just 2 roof lights. The neighbouring property is 3 High View, which if you go back one, Phil, it's, you can see, if you can point to that one. Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. Yeah. Number 3. Yeah.
The actual building's over here, isn't it?
I can't see.
Yes. About 30 metres.
There's 30 metres distance between the building and the neighbouring property, and there's no windows that would overlook.
No, just a couple
It's
of
just
small roof lights.
small roof lights, yeah. So we think that issue's been addressed. During members' site inspection, it was noted that the adjacent land is planning consent to the erection of a dwelling, which Phil will point to there. To avoid any problems of overlooking, it's considered that the window on the side elevation of the annex be constructed as a restricted oriel type window, which only affords overlooking over the garden to Cobweb Cottage. We have spoken to the agent. He understands the window that members want. He didn't have time to produce a drawing for you, but he's happy for it to be conditioned. So we'll add a condition on that the window be approved before the building's constructed. With regard to it being used as a dwelling, the building will be conditioned to ensure that the building will be used ancillary to the main dwelling only and not as a separate dwelling. So we consider that the neighbours' objections have been addressed and we recommend approval subject to the recommended conditions.
Thank you, Paul. There was one issue that I had when I was there. It seemed to be on a slight rise, and I thought they could have lowered it slightly to sort of help with the neighbouring house that might be built or from the rear of the property, that they could have lowered it slightly. So I don't know whether the agent has been, mentioned that to the agent at all.
We could approve a condition on about that floor level being agreed. Yeah. We could add a condition about floor level to be agreed.
Right, thank you,
Yeah.
Paul. I think that would help, the concerns of the neighbours, especially if the neighbouring house has not yet been built. Councillor Murphy.
Just a point. Paula mentioned when she was reading that letter about the neighbour's objection regarding kitchen facilities. I think it's the whole point that there wouldn't be any kitchen facilities because it's a granny annex, not intended to be a separate dwelling. Can you just clear that up?
They're not shown on the drawings. Even if they did put a small kitchen in there, it still would have to be ancillary. So they wouldn't be able to use it as a separate dwelling or rent it out or sell it as a separate dwelling. So even if they did put a kitchen in at a later date, I don't think that would change the use of the building to a separate dwelling.
Thank you. Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, going back to your about the height of it, it would also be more beneficial to the elderly couple if it was on more of a level, so that they went from the house straight into it rather than having to go up a slope for when it's winter time and it's slippery. So I would have thought to drop it down in would have been beneficial all round. Thank you.
Councillor Powell. Councillor Hayward.
Thank you, Chair. On the same point, I would rather they're insisting on a condition on that if we left it up to the officer's discretion, because I noticed that behind the garage and surrounding there, the boundary wall was in fact a dry stone wall, from my recollection. And what I wouldn't want to do is to force the applicant into benching and therefore weakening the foundations of the wall and perhaps spoiling the wall and replacing it by a brick wall because we were just trying to get it lower. The ground is sloping towards the, I think it's the north of the plot. The ground rises very highly. You're going to find different roof lines anywhere on that location. And I think that if we just leave it up to officers to find the best fit, but we wouldn't want to spoil the curtilage wall, which I believe was a dry stone wall.
Anybody else wish to comment? Councillor Evans for approval. Councillor, seconded by Councillor Watts. Show of hands for approval, please, due to those conditions. Thank you. Unanimous, thank you. Now we go to page 35, Abergavenny.
Thank you, Chair. This application refers to the property at 14 Chestnut Drive, Park, Pennyval. An application was presented to committee in May with a recommendation for approval for a two-storey extension. Members were minded to refuse the application owing to its impact on the residential amenity of the neighbouring dwelling. However, since planning committee, the applicants have amended the proposal to a single-storey extension with a roof which slopes away from the neighbouring property to lessen its impact. And we have a drawing there for you to look at. That was the previous scheme, and that is the amended scheme. As you can see, the two-storey extension is now single-storey, and the roof is hit back away from the neighbouring property to lessen its impact. We have consulted with the neighbour, who's now happy with this proposal. So we recommend approval of the amended plans for a single-storey extension at this property.
Right, okay. Has anybody else wish to comment on that amended plan? Is it your ward, Maureen?
Yes, Chairman, it is my ward. I think this is far more sensible, and I did receive an email from the neighbour today saying that he's quite happy with this. And I think if he's happy with it, we are as well, I think. So I'd recommend approval.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards?
I received an email as well. We all did. We all did. The use of the plan. Yeah.
So everyone's happy, so it's been moved for approval and seconded. I give a show of hands for approval now, please. Thank you very much indeed. We now go to page 38. And this is in Monmouth again.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks permission to use part of a dwelling at Meadowgate Forge Road, Osbaston, as a childminding business with a maximum of 12 children. The site would accommodate 2 employees, and the resultant building would have a mixed residential and day nursery use. The application has been brought to Planning Committee as the applicant is an employee of the council. This is the one that we visited yesterday. It's a photograph of the property there on the screen. And that's its location on Forge Road. And that's a floor plan of the dwelling. It has already had a previous approval for an extension, and that's the car parking provision. The property is currently in use for childminding, however, at a level which planning permission is not required. Policy E3 of the LDP allows small businesses to operate from home, provided there would be no adverse impact on local amenity and/or character of the area. A childminding business is considered an acceptable business from home. It's not considered that the proposed use will have an unacceptable noise impact on the neighbouring properties or cause harm to anyone's residential amenity. The proposal is not considered to have a significant amount of additional traffic movements along Forge Road, and the applicants offer a drop-home service to reduce the amount of traffic movements after 4 p.m. The applicants will provide 3 parking spaces for the dwelling and 2 spaces for the employees, which meets the parking requirements. Officers therefore recommend approval of this application, subject to the conditions outlined in the report.
Thank you, Paula. Councillor Wintle, is this your ward? Would you like to comment, please?
Thank you, Chair. Well, it's been going for a short while, so there's been no complaints from this one person. I suspect I know who the person is who objects to everything. So, no legitimate reason to object. I think it's a good scheme, and I propose we accept it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wintle. Anybody else wish to comment?
Only just one thing. I just would like to ask the officer, please. I'd like to ask Phil or Paula if a working hours directive would be appropriate here, bearing in mind the amount of houses locally by there. I don't know. I just look for your advice, really.
They're not going to be late at night, are they? So we working hours.
Anybody else wish to comment?
Can be working.
You propose approval, Councillor Wintle. Seconded. Could I have a show of hands for approval, please? We're unanimous again. Thank you. We're doing ever so well today, agreeing with everything. Although they've all been thoroughly aired, so I think we've got every faith in our decisions. Thank you. Now we go to page 44.
This proposal is to construct 2 extensions on the eastern elevation of Overmono Primary School, Rockfield Road in Monmouth. One extension would accommodate an extended teaching area and wheelchair storage area, whilst the other extension would be in the form of an enclosed canopy area. The extension to the teaching area would be single-storey with a gable roof to match the existing height of the school. The canopy would be sited in the existing playground area with a pitch gable roof and matching materials. The proposed extensions are small additions which would not result in a significant alteration to the site and would not increase the capacity of pupils using the school. The proposals would have a minimal visual impact and be of appropriate form and scale, matching the materials of the existing school. The site is well landscaped with mature trees and the extensions would not be particularly noticeable. Officers therefore recommend approval of this application.
Thank you. Councillor Wintle?
Yeah, mine again. It seems to be my day today. This is an excellent facility, and I totally approve what they're doing, and so I recommend approval again. Yeah.
Anybody else wish to comment at all that was here yesterday? No, you have it. You've been seconded now by Councillor Harris. Could I have a show of hands for approval, please?
And that's unanimous as well, Chair.
Thank you very much, members. But if you're minded to realise that we'll have perhaps a pre-meeting before the next meeting, if there are some issues that you wish to raise or want in detail information about, or it takes a bit of time for the officers to get clarity on it, could you perhaps send an email or something so that the whole meeting isn't taken up with ifs and buts and not many members would perhaps get what they want to address in that short time, because it won't be very long if it's only half an hour. Thank you all. Thank you all. The meeting's closed. Thank you.